Okay, but now it's time to hop to our next Amy, Amy J.
Hey guys, so I'm looking for some advice about my crippling environmental anxiety when it comes to books. So if there's anything that's like staying on a shelf or I'm not using that much, I feel such dread when it has to just exist. So I'll tell you what I currently do. So I listen to audiobooks mostly anyway, because of my chronic illness. I can't look at screens too much, or read too much. So I do that, and then if it's a shorter book or it's not as an audiobook, I'll buy it secondhand and then I'll sell it on again secondhand. But these books that like I rated 5 stars that I really loved, and like I want to own that so I can like quote it up and I can just like flick through it or just look at it and know I loved that book so much. But it fills me with such dread. Now I have a few books, like 4 or 5, but I want more. I just watched Ariel's bookshelf tour and I loved it. It was incredible. It brought me such joy, and I want that for myself. So if there's any advice about how I can deal with this, that would be much appreciated. Love the pod, and I hope you guys are well. Thanks, bye.
All right, so this is a kind of a stressful problem, not going to lie. But the good news is we're here. And everything's gonna be okay. So when I first read this problem, I was like, you know what I need? Lena norms. So I asked Lena to send us some advice for you, Amy, because she knows a lot about the environment and books. So we're going to listen to that as well. We're going to have a third opinion. But let's start off with you, Raylene. What did you think when you listened to this message?
Whew, well, I was kind of like, kind of stumped for a little bit. I was like, how do you get around that problem? Like, how do you get around the problem of wanting to own books, but owning books kind of freaks you out a little bit and like stresses you out? And that was tough. Also, very interesting when Amy said that she only owns about 5 books. I thought that was so wild. Cool. Like, I love having a book collection, but it is kind of cool to just like have a really small collection as well. So, okay. Amy wants to have a collection of her all-time favorite books, but it stresses her out. So I think I've talked about this. It might have been in a question vase, like bonus Patreon episode. But what I personally do, because I love having a book collection, but I also like don't want to have things sitting around that aren't serving any kind of purpose. And that doesn't mean because I'm not like reading them. It's just like books that I know I'm never going to read again, or books that I've lost interest in. And so I'm always getting rid of things. So this is kind of like, the opposite from where Amy's at. But I think that it's really good to kind of like hone your collection to be exactly what you want it to be. And so I think when you do have your collection that way, and for you that might be like, 50 books or 100 books, whatever it is, it feels really like joyful, at least for me, to own those specific books. And like you get excited when you look at them, so it doesn't feel like they're, wasting space or like they're just doing nothing. So I think that if you can kind of think about it that way, like get into the mindset of like these are like wonderful possessions that are serving me and making me happy, then that could be good. But what I'm thinking, like what might be part of the problem is that Amy might not have a proper place to display the books that's kind of sparking joy. So
that's interesting.
I was thinking maybe what you need to do is spread them around your house or your wherever your living situation is. Like maybe have a floating shelf in the living room, and maybe have like a very like special little cool shelf in your bedroom. Maybe have, I don't know, like sometimes you can have like a TV stand that has a place to store books. So like maybe just have them in places that you see them all the time, and they can kind of spark more joy in that way, or maybe make them kind of be more useful. Like what I actually have, like my computer monitors next to me right now, I have like a few of my like Ghibli art books that were kind of just tucked away in a corner somewhere where I never really saw them. Now I have them like kind of used as a razor for my monitor, so that my monitor can be a little higher on my desk, and so I get to I see the books all the time. So it's kind of like incorporating the books into your actual home decor. Like you can use them, like make a stack and like put a plant on it or something. Like it can kind of become part of your house's personality a little bit.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for.
Make them pretty, baby.
Just make them a little pretty. But my other thing that I was thinking too is like you can buy used books. Like if part of the idea is that like buying new books is stressing you out, I think maybe just like going thrifting can be a good way around that too. So just like go hunt for those books that you love and you're going to want to read again and again. And just if you can, find cheap copies that are pre-loved, pre-loved, then that could maybe be helpful to kind of ease your anxiety a little bit.
I agree. This was a fascinating problem, and I think I respect it because we are in a climate crisis. So it's cool that we're thinking about this so deeply. And I know that in a different Reading Confessions episode, I think it was in the last one, somebody was talking about how stressed out they feel about owning a Kindle.
Oh yeah.
Because Kindle's obviously owned by Amazon, and supporting Amazon is really stressful. And so I looked at a little bit of a breakdown of e-readers versus physical books, the effects on the environment and stuff. So I was thinking some of those same thoughts when I was like thinking of my advice for Amy J. Here's what I wrote. Oh, and I also wrote, so glad that you liked my bookshelf tour, because she was like, I love that video. And I'm like, well, thank you. Oh my gosh. First of all, the library. I know that you want to own the books, but maybe there is no way for you to own books and enjoy them.
Yeah, like, you might have to come to terms with that.
That might be just a thing that you have to reckon with, because basically I've had a similar thing with clothing a couple of years ago. Actually, now it was like a decade ago. It's so long ago now, but I watched a documentary called The True Cost, and it was about, and I don't know if this holds up because like I said, it was a decade ago, but I watched this documentary about fast fashion, and at the time I knew very little about it, and my eyes were open, and unfortunately Pandora's box was open, and I could no longer just buy clothes and feel ethical about it. And so I was like, wow, what do I do? And so for a couple of months I just bought clothing from sustainable brands, like places that were farming really environmentally friendly materials and paying everyone livable wages and all. Because of that, though, every t-shirt was like $50, which is what a t-shirt should cost, but it was very unsustainable. Especially I was like a 19 or 20-year-old student. I was like, this is crazy. And then I discovered thrifting, and I was like, wait a second, like I can just go to thrift stores, and I feel no guilt buying thrift clothing because it's literally someone else has given it away. Like, it's already in the system, and what I'm doing is giving it a second life, and maybe it can have a third life. Hopefully it'll have a fourth life, but like, it's a way to just use things that are already there and keep using them. So I go crazy thrifting. I buy whatever I want when I'm thrifting because it's cheap, and I feel no guilt about the planet's impact. So I think maybe that's what you have to come to terms with. Like, maybe there is just no way for you to own books and it still feel fun. And so libraries are amazing, and I think could just be the straight up solution to your problem. But then secondly, definitely used books, very similar to thrifted clothes. They already exist in the ecosystem, and you could just lean in to just owning. And also then you'll have like an extra thrill, because it sounds like you're looking for specific books. Like, you want to own your favorite 5 out of 5 star books, you said. So then you'll be like on the lookout. Maybe this is a great way to do what you're doing, Raylene, and like reach out to your local bookshop and be like, I'm looking for these 10 books. If they come in and you're saving them from a landfill, basically, like, that would be awesome. Could you please let me know, and I will get them that way. I think that's a really beautiful solution. I did I did some research about the environment. So let's let me read some facts here.
Let's hear it.
So this is from an article called Paperbook or E-Reader, Which is Better for the Planet, from DW.com, and it was published by Natalie Mueller earlier this year. So I think this is pretty topical, and I'll link to the article in the description. But she says, more than 70% of the climate impact at Penguin Random House comes from printers and paper mills. She says the average Penguin book generates around 330 grams of carbon dioxide equivalent, which includes all greenhouse gases. This is about the same as a cup of coffee. I found this to be so useful to think about, because I was thinking maybe part of the stress here with Amy J is that, like, maybe you are really anxious about the impact, but you can't quantify what the impact is. So you're seeing this book and you're like, I don't know how bad this was for the world. A cup of coffee. I mean, how many cups of coffee are you going to make in your life? Maybe like every time that you buy a book, you don't have a coffee that day. There you go.
Yeah.
Like there it is. That's equivalent there. Which I think is a really interesting way to put it. It says, The figure accounts for the whole life cycle of producing a book, including machine efficiency, renewable energy usage, ink types, and transport from the printer to the warehouse and then to the customer. So it's like literally the whole chain. It says an average paperback book has around 3 times the climate impact at around 1 kilogram of equivalent CO2, the same as charging 122 smartphones or making 2 cafe lattes. So
I love all the equivalents. That's so useful.
I know. It is so useful. I feel like that really helps put it into perspective that a book really is not the worst thing environmentally that you are doing in a day. And if you're getting them used, I wouldn't even be worrying at all.
If you're getting them used, if you can walk to a used bookstore, like, hallelujah, you don't have to think about it at all.
Or take public transport to the book. Yeah, like you would be so golden, Pony Boy.
Yeah, maybe just like swapping out a couple of little like things here and there to then get a book. Like it's almost like a reward for your slight, like, you know, balancing of
it's things. A balancing. I think that's a great way to think about it. And I think it really puts it in perspective that it's not that bad. I also think most of a book is recyclable. Like at the end of its life, you could put this in your will, You could like totally say like, when I pass away, please can my loved one, whoever that may be, I'd love for you to please make sure that my books get recycled. Like, I feel like that would be so chill. It takes no time. They just have to rip the spine out because the glue can't be recycled, but the paper can't. So I was like, there's a lot. I really don't think you should feel so much guilt. And I think that there's a way for you to own books without it. But at the same time, if you just can't get over it, libraries are here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's listen to Lena's message. I'm so curious.
Yeah.
Hi, Amy Jane. It sounds like you love books as much as I do, and they mean a lot to you. And I completely relate to the eco-anxiety you feel, especially around the things that you love. And I think we can have an almost skewed perception of what the best, most effective priority is because of our love of something. It's often the thing that we love most that we think about the most. And therefore, when it comes to eco-anxiety, we kind of hyperfixate on, which is completely understandable. So first, I wanted to say that it is totally fine, especially if you're buying books secondhand, to own and cherish them. Part of the ways that we are going to conquer this absolute beast, which is the climate crisis, is getting back to that ideal of really valuing the things that already exist in the world. And especially if you're buying books secondhand and keeping them and cherishing them forever, I think that is a radical act of defiance against capitalism, and especially those books that already exist, giving them a permanent home somewhere, a home that they will be loved, even if they're not picked up every day, is really amazing. However, if you do want to do stuff digitally, I also love audiobooks. And one of the ways that I commemorate audiobooks that I've loved without buying the physical copy of them is that I will bookmark things in my audiobook app. And then after I finish the book, a huge pleasure, part of the ritual for me, is going back through my bookmarks and carefully noting down by hand in a diary that I have the best quotes. And it's also a really great way to honour what you've learned in the book. And I really love looking back at those quotes that I have handwritten, and then I've made notes underneath them about my thoughts based on what the author thinks. And it means a lot to me to have those kind of those physical handwritten notes, which I think are sometimes as valuable as looking back at the highlights in a physical book. So I hope that helps. Don't worry, it's gonna be fine.
Classic Lean. That was incredible. I loved that. 2 fantastic points. Like, first of all, owning something that you're going to cherish for your whole life is part of the climate solution. Like, you're
not getting rid of things.
Yeah, clearly Amy isn't just like, I don't care about these things, I'm just buying it because I want to buy it. No, you're like really thinking about these items carefully and which ones you bring into your home. I think that's so beautiful. And you've even said you just want to buy your favorite books. Like,
yeah, you've got such good intentions.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, seriously. And then that second idea is so cool of like,
yeah, I love that.
Just making kind of a physical thing out of the digital file.
Yeah, because it does kind of feel like an audiobook is like, when it's done, it's just gone. So it is kind of, I've never even thought about that, like finding a way to kind of make it feel more solid and a way to remember it more.